history is so important to any community in America.
It is.
Because the world is changing so rapidly. And what was done in each era, if it is not properly recorded, it'll be lost forever. A few weeks ago, I was in Columbia for the celebration of the 1961 March on the State Capitol, where 193 students were arrested for marching on the Capitol grounds. That whole celebration, commemoration of the 1961 March was sponsored by the City of Columbia. They did a fantastic job of putting a commemoration together that was second to none. They even uncovered footage, TV footage from Greenville's March on the Airport, from the March on the Capitol, and we were able to see ourselves as teenagers marching around the Capitol. I was one of those individuals who was arrested. What makes it so interesting, until the celebration, I never knew that that case of the arrest of 193 students went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And
You never knew? But you were arrested?
I was arrested. But you get locked up in different cities during the movement.
You don't see something wrong with that?
Well, I never knew what happened. When the case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court overturned our arrest. And as a result of that, Columbia became desegregated.
Because of you?
Because of 193 students.
Which is one of...
More often than not, I find, especially among African American communities, that other people want to tell their story. That does not happen in other cultures. If the Chinese are working on their history, it'll be
they
Chinese
get to tell
doing
it.
The Japanese and other Asians, India, Pakistan, they tell their own story. How dare anyone try to tell a story of the Holocaust with the Jewish people?
Exactly.
How dare anybody try to tell that
story? Approximately 1970, which was the year before the schools in that area went into full integration. The year prior to that, there was a, if you will, some type of test integration, whereas the city school were all white, and the county schools were all black. And what happened was there was an exchange program of sorts, whereas all the black students that lived within the city limits the year before actual integration came, they started going to the predominantly white school. What happened during that transitional period, there was also talk of what they were going to do with the various schools, because the county had, matter of fact, just very few years before, with much, I would say, administrative trying and effort upon with the black people that lived in the city and the county, had a new school. They were able to have a new school built, which made them very, very proud. And in the process of this transition to the integration, the plan was to take the black school that was new and to close it, send all of the students, black and white, to the predominantly white schools. They were going to take the new school that was for the black children and to allow it to be sold. As a matter of fact, they even already had a buyer for it. They were going to make a manufacturing plant out of it, because of course, as and with most small towns, the school was located near the railroad track, which would be easy for the railroad system to have access to the area for the shipping of their manufactured goods. So there was there was a lawsuit filed. There was a black community organization, if you will. When the suit was filed originally, it was for them to basically not allow the manufacturing plant to take over the school and transition all the students into the predominantly white schools. Obviously, as in with many cases at this time, the pressure was put upon several of the plaintiffs who perhaps worked for the, of course, the white institutions that they at their factories or doing domestic work for the people in the town. Basically, just told them that they were not allowed to join in this suit, and they were victorious in that. Instead of closing the school, the school became a part of the new system, the new integrated school system.
I am from Greece originally. The reason my family came to the United States is so that we can all get educated in whatever field we wish to be in. In Greece, things are very, very tough when it comes to higher education. You may be a smart young lady, you may have, well, let me begin by saying that education is state funded, so it doesn't cost anything to go to school. Tuition is free. So the problem is, of course, there's only so many universities that you can attend or that the state can support. So what happens is at the end of your senior year, people are testing what they call the Panhellenic examination. You know, it's all of Greece, all the high school seniors are all taking the same examination. It's not like the SAT because it's content specific. So there's a math area, there's a science, biology, chemistry. It's really broken down. You know, and each exam may be 2-3 hours long, you know, and you have a score for each exam. I'm not so sure, so don't quote me on how many subjects, but I would guess about 15. You know, so astronomy could be one, and is one. Of course, your math, your ancient history, your modern history. So there's several areas that students are getting tested on. Now, based on those scores, the high school senior gets and their interest, gets an acceptance letter of A, you are accepted to university if you're that lucky, and B, which university you will be attending. And that is, it's not fair. It's not motivating, because you have a high school senior and they graduate from school, and now they're going to go to this rural, tiny town that has the university, and that's their choice, or no education. So the freedom in the United States, I'm raising 4 children that, they have the freedom to be what they want to be and to go where they want to go. With proper preparation is truly something to be admired, cherished, respected, something that not to be taken for granted from young people your age, your younger siblings, and anybody else.
July 12th of 1780, the Revolutionary War is very strong. Mrs. Bratton and her children were there on the farm. Colonel William Bratton, her husband, was away with some of the soldiers. He came home one day and he told his wife to be very careful because the British were out to kill him. And he left. But before he left the grounds, there was the black slave Watt standing over by the fence. He went over to that slave and he put his hand on the shoulder of that slave and he said, "Watt, I'm going back to fight. You stay here and you take care of the family." And he left. A few days later, Mrs. Bratton is out in that backyard. And her daughter came running towards her. And the daughter was yelling, they're coming, the soldiers are coming." And that's when Mrs. Bratton told all of the slaves to get in the house, told Watt's wife, Polly, to get in the house. And they went in. Those soldiers came up. And they made all of those family members come outside. They had guns on them. The youngest Bratton child was holding on to his mother's apron. And one of the slaves snatched that little boy away, and he took something called a reaping hook, and he put it to the wife's neck and said, "Tell us where your husband's located, or we're going to kill you." One of the other soldiers knocked him down and said, "Leave her alone." They heard the soldiers talk about they were going to wait for Bratton to come home, then they would get him, and they left. When they were out of sight, that's when Mrs. Bratton called Watt, who was still down in the woods getting water. And he told him, you've got to go tell your master not to come home. If he comes home, they're going to kill him. Now, the British were offering slaves freedom. And that was an opportunity for that slave to do that, but he didn't. He went and he told Bratton what had happened. July 12th of 1780, because of what that slave did, the Americans won that very small battle, the Battle of Hoke's Defeat. Did they give him his freedom? No. They did not give him his freedom, but he was allowed to do things that other slaves on that farm were not allowed to do. When I first started out, it was very difficult because my topic is a topic that people will say, oh, let's not talk about that old-timey stuff. The children want to know more about it because they know eventually they're going to be reading about it in their books. And if I can get that story to them and bring it to life now, when they get there, it'll mean more to them.